All right, guys, we're live again. And as usual, I'm going to start out with on your marks, set, go. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Ian and Ian. We're so happy, we're so delighted to come back another Sunday afternoon at the 9 p.m. with our special guest, a man that you guys have heard about. At a very tender age, he was up in the rising of track and field. He won his first world championship medal at the age of 22, and he's the first Bahamian male athlete to win a world championship title. So it's no other than Avard Moncur. But before we hear from Avard, I'm going to let Ian Thomas, the health and wellness specialist, introduce himself and to welcome you also to another episode.
Yes, another night. We just want to say it's always a pleasure to be here on a Sunday night and just to be here with our audience and our followers who have been inspired every week, educated by our guests. And tonight with us, we know we'll not fall short on that because this gentleman have delivered over the years, delivered on and off the track. So tonight we just want to have you guys help us welcome Avard Moncur, a man from Bahamas, just like Jamaica, the Caribbean culture. So Avard, welcome to Ian and Ian show, man.
Thank you, Ian and Ian. I didn't even pay attention to both guys. The same name spelled similar. I think that's cool. Thanks for having me. I really think this is a great thing you guys are doing in terms of creating a platform to kind of revisit athletes that have done things in the past and allow open a door for young people to be inspired in some way or another based on things that we've done and what we've learned in the past. So I think that's an awesome accomplishment that you guys are doing.
All right, and we appreciate it. We appreciate for you to take time out your busy schedule on your Sunday evening to share some of the knowledge and experience, some of the obstacle, some of the challenges that you face, and because the goal of this program is to educate, motivate, and inspire someone that might watch it today, tomorrow, next week, next year. We just never know. So we are so happy that we want to, deliver live testimony. Now we're going through a pandemic, and a lot of people is spending a lot more time at home, and so we was very motivated. 7 months to go to actually say, what, let's try to revisit and let's try to bring a platform where people could the script is not set, this is just real conversation, and and we pretty much from a track and field standpoint, understand the sport and understand about athletics, and just want to talk about some of your give you opportunity just to share some things that you might not have the time, and just as I said, to inspire someone in so many ways. So as usual, we start from the grassroots level. We always go back from the grassroots because we always got to know where the whole thing have started. Obviously, you're from a country with a rich nation of track and field, and has become a powerhouse in the 400 meter and many other events. I mean, everybody hear about Bahamas, and obviously you got one of the top destination country in the world. You guys have hosted the World Relay, and you guys have produced. I've been friends with several athletes from the Bahamas, because of just being from the Caribbean, all the way back from Debbie Ferguson, Mackenzie. So yeah, so if she watch this, we give her a shout out. Troy McIntosh, Joe Styles, Ramon, Chris Brown, everybody. We're going to shout out some more people as the program go on. So, Avard, we're going to start back from the grassroots. Just tell us a little bit about what high school did you go to, and when did you actually start doing athletics?
Well, athletics kind of was one of those things that I wasn't interested in it. It was kind of just something I did to hang with friends. And I just remember, one year, actually in elementary school, we had this sports day, and this kid, I didn't participate, but I saw the kid, and he was just winning everything, and just admired the respect that he was getting. I think he just really looked accomplished in the eyes of teachers and stuff like that. I saw that it was definitely an honorable thing that he was doing. So the next year I said, well, I don't know. I just kind of feel like I could beat him, and so the next year we actually was able to go to the Thomas A. Robinson track stadium, which is our national stadium. And, my teacher, she was just like, I'm going to put you in the 400. And I was like, I got to run around this whole thing, But like, yeah, she said, but I'm going to put him in the race too. So I was like, okay, well, I think I could beat him. So I'll do this event. And, when I started the event and, I was able to beat him and, I felt like I was pretty accomplished and pretty much did everything that I needed to do. But, there are some people around me who just saw something that I couldn't see. And obviously I didn't care about. I just wanted to beat him, and there's this lady, her name is Diane Thompson. She was a teacher from Pittsburgh. And basically, she started a track club. It was very interesting track club because we didn't have a lot of support. It was called Road Runners Track Club, and she just had like a gold Nissan Sunny. I don't even think people know what that car is, but basically, she would like jam a bunch of kids in this car. I'm sure at some point there's something illegal about that, but anyway, she would take all of us and train us and basically expose us to the sport of track and field. And she just educated us of who the people were that we should look up to and be knowledgeable about in the sport. And really just was that guiding force and introduced us to track and field in a very untraditional, unorthodox way. It almost felt like we were just using our time to just have fun while also learning something different. It wasn't competitive. It wasn't to do this. We never thought about time. It wasn't until I was 16 when I heard about the Paris-St Games when she started talking about times. And I'm just like, hold on, wait a minute. I thought you're just supposed to win, But anyway, that's when it became very serious because the workout started to change dramatically. I had to get a little bit more structure in my training and so forth. And, she really created a lot of opportunities for us to be competitive. And I remember going to my first Carifta trials and making it. It was in the Cayman Islands. And I had no clue. All I heard about the Jamaicans, and people were just fearful of the Jamaicans. So I remember once I made it to the finals in the 400, I just remember the Jamaican guy just going so fast, and I'm not really that fast guy. I really have a really deliberate pace, and it nothing exciting about it. It looks very smooth. But they're going so fast. I said, but they're gonna die, and they eventually did die, and I won my first Carifta championships. And I just remember the feeling and the thrill that went along with that. It was just like nothing that I'd ever experienced. Once I got home to the airport and my family was at the airport, and when I went to school, everyone knew where I was and so forth. I knew that this was something that was going to be important for my life and something that I wanted to be involved in because I only got a lot of positive feedback from the accomplishments I'd done at that point.
All right, man. Thank you for that great introduction. I know that everyone has a reason, and everyone have a way of getting into the sport. I know one guy told me that he used to have to run to the shop, and come back. Another person said that dad used to have them run to go get water in the morning, and it's all kind of different stories that get people to get started in track and field. But go ahead. No, you go ahead.
The interesting thing about that is that because the initial coach I had, she didn't have like means to get us to and from the track all the time. So what she did was that she gave a newsletter, and basically she taught us how to measure our distances using the lamp pole, the light poles, whatever you want to call them, the utility poles. And she would say, if you go from there, that's 30 meters. So if you put three of them together, you have about 100 meters. So you just need to go a little further. So my mom would just send me to the store every day. I don't know. I think she just always had something that she needed from the store. And so I figured the days that I couldn't get to the track, I would use that method of creating. It was probably about 2 miles from my house. I would just break the 2 miles into intervals,
Okay.
kind of use the poles as measurements in order to get some type of interval training on days that I didn't get to go to a track. And that was a very long time that I had to do it that way, because when I actually did my career, I hadn't really had the kind of training like some of the kids from the private schools who are really engrossed in like really advanced programs. Like my way of preparation was very different from them, but because of her guiding us through this, teaching us how to do things on our own, I somehow always ended up in really good shape. And thanks to my mom sending me to the store.
All right. Yeah, it's so good when your parents kind of point you in a direction. I know my parents dropped me off at the high school, and he was like, "Look, I see you in the Christmas. You get dropped off in September, and I see you in December. But that's how I meet some going to boarding school and all that. You develop a lot of good friendship and a lot of good memories, and you started out getting new friends. It's a whole nother set of friends, and it was much easier, and I really happy to meet. Not to grow up around the same friends and for my whole life, So that change was really good, but I hated it. I mean, I wanted to go back home, because I miss my friends and all the things. But so let's move along. So who like going back way back? Who was some of the first athletes you heard about from the Bahamas or just period in track and field that you might have seen on TV? In the younger days.
So Debbie Ferguson was really huge in our country. She had already, by the time I got to Carifta, she had already won 2 Carifta championships. So she was definitely very popular. And Pauline Davis, with my first year, she was the first Bahamian to win a silver medal in the 400 meters. And then you had Frank Rutherford, who was the first Olympic bronze medalist. He was really popular, and I think if you knew Pauline and you knew Frank as a person in the sport, even a regular person in the country, those were 2 names that were synonymous with track and field in our country. They were just always in the press, and it was just interesting because they went to these really interesting places around the world, and it made you see that track and field could not only be something to have fun with, but it also could be this very interesting career as well.
Okay, awesome. So what was at first interest into the sport? What event did you think you was good at?
I was trying to be a sprinter. I ran 100 and 200, but I just didn't turn those legs over the way some of the faster guys were. I think 200 was pretty comfortable for me, but like 400 definitely was my event that I was superior to my peers. And so I figured I would stick with that. It just seems like that one came easier. It hurt the most, but just something that I just had to focus on. And obviously it worked out in my favor.
All right.
But I didn't know that I wasn't interested in running the 800.
Oh. Well, before I turn you over to Ian, what I wanted to ask you, your first Carifta, that got to be an experience, like flying to another country and going over there competing and just hearing about, again, the Jamaica High School Boys Championship is always, it's worldwide known, and knowing that the Jamaicans are coming off like their Boys Championship, they're in very good shape. What was your inspiration that how that motivate you, knowing that you're gonna have to be at your best when you go to the Caribbean?
Well, one of the things that I realized at that age was that I had the ability to just zone noise out, meaning distractions. So I was able to focus only in my own world. So I also knew the least I knew about competitors, the better it was for me. I just needed to know who was the fastest, and that was it. But I didn't need to know everything. So I just found a way to have that tunnel vision and not focus on anything that anybody else had done prior to. I had a coach who said to me, "You are only as good as your last race." And I figured, you know what, this is going to be the race that's going to define me. And I could either take advantage of this opportunity, or I could just get so caught up in my nerves and just lose this opportunity. So I really went out there focused, and just focused on what I had to do, what I knew my strengths were, and I didn't exceed myself beyond what I knew that I had practiced and what I was capable of. And once I stuck to that strategy, I saw when those guys started to die, and I knew that I still had the strength. It's almost like you smell blood. You smell blood, and I just went after them. And the next thing I knew, I was leading the race. But it made me understand that, if you're fit, you can fight. If you do the things that are necessary to prepare yourself, then the race can become whatever you want it to be if you prepare properly. And that's what I use as my mantra for the rest of my life, is to always be prepared and basically try to do the things that were along the lines of, being a responsible athlete and taking care of my body.
Okay, awesome. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of your, now that you're retired, you could tell us some of the things that you normally do that, track and field can get a little bit mental and, a lot of different things, but how you was able to stay focused. So I'm going to hold my thoughts over to you, Ian.
All right. Again, I just want to say welcome again, Avard. Welcome to the platform. So before we get way ahead, I really want to get to your culture. And I'm going to ask you to just explain a little bit about the Bahamas culture, but please don't leave out the food, okay? Because there's a question coming up behind that one.
That's the best part, the food. That's, for me, I wasn't really this huge social person. John Canoe is really one of the really huge events that happen. But before John Canoe, we would always have this thing called Gombe Summer. You had all the various Caribbean music, reggae music, calypso, all those things. And my mom would always expose me to these things. She would make sure that we always had the opportunity to understand that, yes, there's Bahamian culture, but the Caribbean is almost like one big family, and we all have different variations of music that we adapt. And so, that was really a huge part of my upbringing, just going to these huge events. But, there's one thing that in the Caribbean that you just can't get without getting a piece of, which is the cuisine. The conch, peas and rice, or you guys call it rice and peas. And I grew up with those things, and it was really some of the best experiences in food in my life growing up, having access to those cultural diversities. Even going to the various islands like Trinidad, I've been to Jamaica about 6 or 7 times. I never had curry goat until I went to Jamaica, but I've been to curry goat that rivals Jamaican curry goat since. So, just really great food, a sense of family, a sense of camaraderie. People always want to have fun and have a good time, and just coming together and with food and just enjoying life, and alcohol, but I don't drink.
All right. So why I wanted to touch on that is because I know Bahamas have a few islands. I won't say a few because there's many islands there, but we have the main one. Could you tell us exactly where you're from there in Bahamas?
I'm from Nassau. There's about 700 islands, of which about 23 are inhabited. That was just, the weird question was like, I wonder who went and counted all those islands. There are 700 islands and 23 are inhabited, and I'm from the main one, Nassau. I have family that are from other islands like Eleuthera and Freeport. I think you guys may have heard of Freeport, and Abaco. Those are other big islands, whatever. But I'm from the main boy. I'm a city boy in the grand scheme of things.
All right, Mr. Moncur. What you didn't know is that I've been to Bahamas like on 9 trips during my nursing program. I would have come over to St. Margaret's and Princess Margaret Hospital, the 2 hospitals.
Yes.
And I also work in one of the mental health facility there, which I really like the program that you guys have there in terms of mental health. But best part of coming over to Bahamas was fish fry.
So that's the first place I go whenever I visit home. After I've seen my family, the next step is the fish fry. That used to be so small when I lived there, but after a while, the diversity of vendors and so forth, it just became a really nice atmosphere. Great food, catch up with people that you hadn't seen in a while. But yeah, that's definitely the spot. Fish fry.
All right, so I'm gonna put Moncur back over to you, Ian. But Ian, you go to Bahamas. That conch fritters, man, fish fry, got it.
All right. Well, look, we want to give a shout out to Ali and Pompey, and you got another guy here from St. Diego. He competed against you at the Carifta, Omar Bailey.
Oh.
And he said you got him in the 400, but he got you back in the 4x4. So I don't, we know it's a long time, but Omar
Bailey, who was in my first, he was the Jamaican guy that everyone was talking about in '95. Everyone was like, "Oh, that's the tough Jamaican guy. Watch out for him." So yeah, he was a great performer. Definitely, he went a really hard, very aggressive runner. But it was a great.
All right, so let's just talk about just summarize your Carifta career. Just tell us what you have learned from the Carifta. Just after going to the Carifta, how did that motivate you to continue to run and just say, look, I want to be Olympian. And at what point in your young career that you said, you know what, I think I could be good at this, and I wanted to do it for a long time?
Well, actually, just going not only just Carifta, there were so many different levels at the junior level that you could different competitions. You had the Carifta Games, but these same people were also at the Junior CAC Games, and then you had the Junior Pan Am Games, and then the World Junior Games. So these people, that's where the whole Caribbean family became this thing, because these were people that you were coming into contact with on a regular basis. You were seeing them at all these trips, and then you realize that this wasn't just like just this competitive thing, but these were people who you established friendships with no matter what event that you went to. So, I mean, that was really the good part, the relationship building that came from attending all these various events. I enjoyed just having fun and competing at the Carifta Games, the World Junior Championships, and also the Pan Am Games. But then I understood that there was another level. In '96, I actually was on the cusp of making the actual Olympic team. But I just figured I just needed a little bit more maturity. And just watching our Golden Girls win a medal and just saw all the glory that came along with that, the opportunities that came along with that. Also, at that time, I was hearing about scholarship opportunities. It made me understand that this can be the catalyst to change my life. So I really just focused on that aspect of it, to get college education and also just to travel the world. I mean, because none of my teammates or none of my schoolmates were going on the summer to Chile or Australia or nothing. Like, those were things that I was experiencing as a 15 and 16-year-old. So I knew that I was going to have opportunities that I wouldn't ordinarily had I done something different.
Yes, it's definitely it's always good as a young teenager or a teenage boy able to travel somewhere. So let's talk about the next stage of your career. Decided to, I'm pretty sure you was offered a lot of scholarship, but just tell us about your transition over into the U.S. just your first year coming over and just trying to I know that obviously it's warm in the Bahamas. What were the factors that you was concerned about, and how prepared you were just coming to another country? Not gonna be able to eat your home cooked meal and all that stuff.
So my mom taught me how to cook, so that wasn't really a big issue. It was a big issue when I first, because I went to Morehouse College for 1 year, and
Yeah.
when I went to the cafeteria, they had like what you call soul food, Southern cuisine, and they had like fish and chips or something like that. So I'm looking around for the rice and the plantains and everything. And then when it got cold, I realized that it wasn't just like a cold front for the weekend. It was cold for like several months. I felt a little homesick. It was very difficult adjustment, but I understood that this was for my best. And then I eventually transferred to Auburn University under the tutelage of Coach Ralph Spry and Henry Roll and Coach Mel Rosen, who has unfortunately passed away. Rest in peace. And basically, I think that's where I started to understand like how effective like my talent was and how far I could go with this sport. Simply because all of a sudden I started to be exposed to the right environment and also having the resources available to me. Like a good weight room right up the street, and everything was close to each other for the most part. So it really allowed me to, develop in a way that I would not have done had I remained in the Bahamas, just because of everything that was available to me.
All right, so definitely the Auburn Tigers, and I got to say that Auburn has a great program. They have produced, I believe, so many Olympian, 46 Olympic medalists all time from 27 different athletes, and so you guys have a big history of having international athletes winning medals, competing over. So obviously we know that was a great choice, and obviously the results speak for itself. So now going to Auburn, going to a bigger program. Now you got people on the team that are good just as you. Tell us what were some of the difference and the challenges that you faced just get into your group. Obviously you won the NCAA, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But how was your progression? How was the improvement just going to Auburn?
It was like I was an island boy coming to a whole other country. Fortunately, Alabama is kind of really laid back, small country, university town. So there wasn't a lot of distractions. But I understood early on that people were really serious about this. They wanted to be a part of that tradition, and they wanted to. They had their own personal goals, and for me, I hadn't really put into focus what I really wanted to do. Those things, like going to the Olympics, just still seemed so far-fetched for me. And I'd only at the time when I got there ran 46.4. So sounding here and in the Bahamas, I think at that time the fastest time ever by a Bahamian was 45.2. So for those moments, I just didn't know what was possible. And I also was not a very good indoor runner. So, that for the first few months, I had no clue what level of fitness I was at because, I had my challenges running on the indoor circuit. It wasn't until I got outdoor in 1999 that I understood that all that work that I was putting in, all the effort that I was putting in, all the sacrifice I was putting in, it started to come together. Because in my first outdoor meet, I broke 46 seconds. And for me, that was like the world. I was like, oh, did I just run 45.9? And for me, that felt like 43, So basically, once I saw that happen, I understood that if I discipline myself, if I put the work in, and, that a lot of good things could happen. And I just had a really great coaching staff. That's really key. They were very knowledgeable. They really provided an environment for you to not necessarily have to think about negative things like not having certain things available to you. They just provided everything, and that was something that I hadn't really experienced coming through my life. I feel like, because in high school you purchase everything for yourself. Now you're at a point where you have this program that's providing all these things for you, and it allows you to focus on just doing that, just not focus on trying to figure how things are going to get done. So that worked for me really, really well. The training program was amazing. It was excellent. I had great training partners. All of them, I think, had ran probably right around what I ran or faster. So, each day it was just such a competitive environment that it forced you to bring out your best game every day.
All right, awesome, excellent, excellent, excellent. So obviously, going to Auburn, was there at what point did you, I know you said you probably ran a 45 second your first meeting. What do you believe that was a turning point for knowing that, look, I could do a whole lot better if I could run so fast or early in the season?
Yeah, it was like because it was kind of cool when I did that, and it just kind of made me understand that I always believe, because I always understood the concept of periodization and building up to a championship, because fortunately I've been exposed to that to some point, but it's just like having that consistent program and having the resources available, like going to a training room immediately after practice and having a cold tank to go, just regeneration. Those weren't things that I thought about, but those things were so instrumental in my success, in terms of just having my body, giving my body the things that it needed to recover so that I could come back the next day and compete or practice at a really high level. Also, the SEC was such a competitive conference. It's like we went to NCAA, it pretty much was the SEC, versus the Pac-10 kind of thing. So mentally, you had to get your mind set to very, very high competition. At the time, I think we had like guy Derek Brew, and he's like the top JUCO graduate. So I knew that it wasn't a walk around the park. It was definitely a lot of work that I had to put in if I wanted to compete at that level.
All right, awesome. Over to you, Ian.
All right, Avard, I just gonna touch a little bit on the family values, and I know you speak earlier about your mom. Could you just give a shout out to these two people that was influential in your upgrowing, getting to where you are today?
So really, my mom and my grandmother, it's like they didn't understand what was going on with that. All they knew is that I needed things, and they were going to make sure that I had it. In terms of like if I needed to go on a trip or whatever, I don't think they understood the magnitude of what track and field would become in my life. They just knew that they were going to support me in whatever way that they needed to. And I don't think that's ever something that was void in my life. Also, like, track and field is really a huge extended the track and field community. You had all these people, once they saw you had the ability to, to do really well, they supported you. There were many times when I went to the track and didn't know how I was going to get home, but I got home. Just that community feel. It really does take a village to raise a child. Also, some of those coaches who went above and beyond to make sure that I got to and from certain workouts and so forth. But my mom always taught me to focus on God, believe in His presence in my life, and if I focus on that, then opportunities and a whole bunch of things would start to unfold in my life. And that's what I did. I was always in church. Church is a huge part of my upbringing. And that really allowed me to make that connection between what I was physically doing and the spiritual aspect of, just kind of calling those things into my life as well.
Okay, and quickly, just want to touch a little bit on the books because, as we say, we're here to educate and inspire. So, as a young athlete, were you able to balance your schoolwork along with your preparation for your events? How was that going?
So that was education was really, really important for me. I understood that yes, I was going to compete in track and field, but I was also going to get a college degree. My mom did not necessarily, she only had a high school level education, but she always told me that I always want you to be bigger or better than what I've done. And so, we really focused on, having education. I've always had pretty strong education when I was in high school, but when I got to college and it was just only me and I didn't have anyone pushing me, I also understood that the reasoning behind me being there was basically to get an education first. I was a student first, an athlete second. So even though it was great that I was being successful as an athlete, it was equally as important that I made sure that my grades were maintained and that I was able to be a very solid student as well. Once again, the school really provided a lot of resources in terms of tutorial services and study hall and all that stuff. So that made it even more easier for me to, really, I guess, channel into that.
Okay. Could you tell the audience what you majored in, and is it something that you're using today?
So my major was in business administration and health promotion. I originally planned to be a physical therapist, but that's not what I'm doing. I actually work in education still, and I'm more a program coordinator at Georgia Tech. I work at the College of Computing there. And so, you don't necessarily always end up where you kind of thought you end up, but I think going into a track and field career, and you think that maybe you could try something different. I tried coaching. That didn't necessarily work out for me the way that I was hoping for. It really is a demanding career, and I wanted something that didn't require as much travel. And so the administration portion of the school worked really well for me because it allowed me to pretty much stay put for the most part. So that's how I got into that aspect of it. The plan is to still, get into like public health and that kind of stuff. But right now, that's I'm more into the administrative part of education.
All right. So, listening to you, I think you are one of many athletes that would state that they wanted to get in or become a physiotherapist. I don't know if is this because of the injuries that you guys face, and it's such a necessary career path for you guys. As I know, a lot of athletes are basically plagued with injuries. Many athletes, you'll find that injury is what normally end their career. Could you speak a little into this, whether from the injury standpoint?
Yeah, it's, studying exercise physiology and kinesiology and all those things really made me a better athlete. It made me view like training and preparation and recovery so differently, because I was aware of how they correlate in terms of actual performance. But injuries is a part of the sport, and I guess most athletes want to find a way to minimize that. And I've had my share of all kinds of injuries, from stress fractures to function injuries and so forth. But I've understood how to treat those injuries in the best way that's going to decrease the downtime so that you're able to get back to training and hopefully really high level performances. So that was very helpful with that.
All right, thank you. Back to you, Ian.
All right, thank you, man. So we're gonna move along and talk about your collegiate career a little bit more in detail. We know that you actually have won the NCAA in 2000, 2001, and, that's, very, very, very impressive. So, but let's talk about the year 2000. It was Olympic year. You starting out with a bang. So just bring us back. Actually, before we bring us back, I'm gonna just show you the race. So it could just bring your memory back. Because I know it's you know, I know it's a long time. So let's just stream that race real quick here. And it's not gonna have any audio. Yeah, let's stream that real quick and all right, let's take.
This is such an interesting race for me because for me, I didn't know that I could win it because you know you had some really great talent in there, and a lot of these guys had run much faster than me earlier in the season, so I had no clue, and I hadn't run 44 that year. I think I grazed it like run 44:99, so you know that's pretty 45 seconds. So for me, like I just didn't know what I was going to be capable of. So this race was more of a shock for me and a really huge confidence booster.
All right, awesome. So just looking at that race, how much you been in? I believe you was in lane 4. How much that you able to see everyone? How did that help you in any way?
So for me, like I approach my race as, you know, just I break it down into various phases, and I try to execute those phases and not necessarily focus on individuals. You know, I definitely want to get out strong, and of course, when you get out pretty strong, you get to feel who is like getting out really aggressive or who is not getting out fast enough, and but you know and understand and kind of have a feel of what the pace should be. And at some point, you know that you can't continue to press. You have to, at some point, relax. You know, I read Michael Johnson's book, who, when I was in high school, about the various phases that he used. And I had actually adapted those phases, which is press, pace, and then on the turn, you position yourself and then pray. And the praying part really is you just hope that you don't die. So I mean, for years that was really the formula that I used. You know, so for me at this point, I'd been in the best shape of my life. I had no clue what the outcome was going to be. A few of those guys are running a little faster than me, but I just knew that if I focused on those phases as opposed to who did what and who didn't do what, that, you know, it would probably come together as a really great race. The weather was just perfect. My lane placement was perfect. So it really allowed me to keep my eyes. You know, Brandon Couch was always somebody who went out really fast. So I knew not to go and chase him. But then you just had a couple of guys who were pretty leveled also. So I definitely tried to, you know, feel my way through that race, but most importantly, focus on my plan and just make adjustments as I went through the race.
Okay, awesome. So 44.7, I believe, again, just probably was 21 years old at the time, you know, young, and, you know, was able to come out victorious. So just going into the race, how confident were you? Obviously, I know that, yeah, you could talk about it now. Obviously, all of us going to a race to win, but you know, just the build up from the semifinal going in. How confident were you? You really believe that you could have won the race before you run it?
So the year before at 99, I placed 4th. And when I looked at that race, I was just like, you know, this really is the difference of execution and, you know, also a certain level of fitness. But you're pretty much right there in the front with these guys. You just got to believe in yourself, but also you got to prepare properly. So after, I think 99, I went into training with a whole different mindset, understanding that, you know, in order to really be with the best, you got to train with a different mindset. you have to train like you are one of the best. And I think all my training partners were like, well, what's going on with you? I just understood that I just had to step it up a little bit. I didn't have to go too crazy. I just need to step it up because I'm not too far off. So when I got in that race, it was more so, if you do what you've always been doing, then you get, really different results. So I've been doing this in practice on so many different occasions. So that was just the opportunity for me to just show what I've been preparing for all year.
All right, awesome. So, man, I gotta say that gotta be, I know just winning the NCAA. So where do you do with these rings and things now? I know, you guys get. I wasn't fortunate to get a big ring, but I seen some of the rings that every school gives out like a different rings.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much you treasure those rings, and how do you what's a keepsake for them now?
I was hyped because football players get rings. You could have told me nothing when I got my ring. I had my name on it, so that was a whole other thing. It was just like we love the medals, but it's more the experiences that we live for. Well, me, I live for the experiences. So like those things, eventually you put them away somewhere, you hang them up in your house or whatever. But experiences are the things that I treasure the most. The relationships that I build with the people I were competing against, those are the things that matter to me. But I have my little office, that I kind of hang them in, most of the time it's just me that sees them, but at the end of the day, they're just memorabilia of the experience that I had to gain.
All right, awesome. So just going to move along. So 2000, let's talk about you actually won the Bahamian title 4 times in a row. Which at the time you was the Bahamian record holder, for a long time, and obviously. That was passed over to Chris, and then now, you got another gentleman, Steve Gardner, that really I took it to a whole nother level. But just realistically, looking back at it, how fast really you think you could have run? Just looking back of some of the things that you think that if you could have done some things different, and just between you talking to yourself, and realistically, did you feel like you hit your highest potential in the sport?
I don't think so. Injuries played a really huge part in that. It was like, just those things hinder things on a whole other level. Once you leave college, you don't necessarily have those resources available to you, and they become very costly. But for the most part, I feel like I could have definitely gone faster than 44.4. But I tried. I just am grateful and appreciation for the things that did happen. I was able to win a world championship, was able to win 2 NCAA championships. My coach used to tell me, he was like, "You're really just trying to win them." To run extremely fast or do some time that nobody else has done is really just the gravy.
Yeah.
But the goal really is to win the title. I mean, I think for me, running 44 at home, I don't know that inspired somebody, but it allowed Bahamian young boys to see that this was possible. Because when I grew up, I only knew a 45.2. So now they can see, because I also broke our national record on home soil, which was the greatest pleasure for me. I ran 44, I think it's 44.5 at the time or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But, people were able to see that a Bahamian person that grew up with the same resources and same environment was able to do this. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. I would have loved to run 43. It looks so easy, for how they're doing it these days. It didn't happen. Life happens, and you just appreciate the fact that it exists in our country. I think for Jamaica and the Bahamas, those times just seemed like a world away. But now you have multiple Jamaicans that have run sub 44, multiple Bahamians that have run sub 44, and even other Caribbean islands like the Karani James. The Caribbean, young males and even the females too, because they're running pretty fast as well. They're seeing that this is possible for their life. And I've run a few 43 splits, so I believe that maybe it was in there, but I don't believe in crying over spilled milk. It's already gone. I had a great time when I was doing it. Yeah.
I just want to throw it out because look, you're retired now. It's that sometime we'll talk about a certain thing. I know for me, I am disappointed with. I am grateful. When I look back, I know that I could have run much faster, than what the book says. But again, I guess you can't do anything now. So that was the best answer there.
So me, and this may sound very odd to you, but I think my biggest curiosity of all curiosities is how fast I could run at 400-meter hurdles. That is the biggest curiosity I have, because I kind of started preparing for it, but it's just finding the coaching and everything to kind of help me with that. That wasn't really accessible, but that's been my biggest curiosity, because I did start running both events, 400 and 400 hurdles. So I always was curious. Felix Sanchez was a good friend of mine, and I was just like, I had that thought in my mind, like the guy in elementary school I felt I could be. I'm not saying that I think Felix was an amazing athlete. I always was curious if I would have been able to compete at the level that he competed at.
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite sure that you will be successful in the hurdles. It's not that difficult. In terms of you got the height. We've seen guys run with harbor technique. with good. I
was one of them guys. I had really horrible hurdle tech.
Yeah, it's always a balance. Felix was very efficient over the hurdle.
Yeah.
And Felix was like a 45 low guy. And he probably could have run faster if he focused on the 400. So, Felix have done after the 2000 Olympics, Felix pretty much have a nice streak going on for himself. It was amazing what Felix does for track and field with his wearing the little wristband with the light. And, at the time, our sport doesn't have any entertainers. At the time, Felix was the first person that started to try to entertain, and he was brave enough, and bold enough to say, you know what, I'm gonna wear this band, and I'm not taking it off until I lost another race. And I'm going to talk to him about that eventually, because I think it's one of the great stories of track and field. So I know I skip ahead a little bit, but I just want to ask you about how different was you to defend your NCAA championship. I know that that got to bring some pressure, knowing that, man, I win it the year before and I want to win it again. How did you was able to pull that through? Coming back and win back-to-back championship.
I think for me, I was just a little bit more mature. I had been to the Olympics, which is the peak of any track and field person's career. It's like when I stepped out on the Olympic stage, like I was thinking with Michael Johnson. It's just like I, did Gregory Harden. I was just like, I think was in one of my heats too. So it was just like, once you've competed against those people, you just have a different mindset when you go back to the collegiate circuit. So for me, I just had a different mindset, different confidence. But I would definitely say another huge part of that was the Olympics was extremely late that year. It was in September. So when I actually got into training, off-season training, my fitness level was very significant. Like you're talking about running 44 seconds in September. Meaning, and then of course, the season starts in January, so you really didn't have to do too much preparation. So that really benefited me in a different way. There were struggles that people go through with off-season training. That was never an issue during that year. So a lot of things just came pretty easy. They say you train, you say you condition to train and you train to compete. So the conditioning already happened. I was just training to compete. So I was just focused on that part. And obviously when you're that fit, you can take your workout levels to a whole nother place. So confidence was definitely high. My mindset was in a different place because he went against Michael Johnson. So, I have this picture of me and Michael Johnson, and I'm just like, hey, I mean, if you ran against him, who else in the world to be concerned about, But the biggest thing for me was I got dipped out at the finish line in Sydney, meaning I barely made the Olympic final. That was a changing point in my life because I was like, I shouldn't be watching this race. I really have the ability to be in that final as well. So it made me just take training to a different place. It made me take my mindset to a different place. And competition just became something very different for me because I was confident in a way that I hadn't been ever.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. What I'm about to say now, this is probably just looking at what you have done, duplicated in 2001. It seemed like you have got some unfinished business from the year 2000. Knowing that you won the NCAA and you made it to the Olympics and you barely, missed the final. You actually come back in 2001, won the NCAA, but this time you went ahead and win the World Championship. Yeah. Now, wow. That got to be such an inspirational. What was your driving force? What did you done differently, knowing that you step up the game in 2001, because you kind of run against the same people that was in the Olympics, except I believe Michael Johnson now have retired. Because I think at the time you was pretty much a young athlete and was on the way of, people start to say this could have been the next person to move in that direction, to dominate the event. So tell us about some of what you have done different from 2000 to 2001 in terms of, won the NCAA and then coming back to win the World Championship in Edmonton.
I call it the perfect year. It was like everything really just flowed. And like I said earlier, I think it really came from the fact that the Olympic Games were so late and the off-season preparation really could go to a next level. I think, some of the workouts that we would do in the off-season that I struggled with the prior year, they were so easy. And as a matter of fact, I feel like my coach had to pull me back a few times and just kind of prepare me differently because where my fitness was. Confidence, mindset, also missing an opportunity of being able to make it to the Olympic finals, all those kind of coalesced into just having the desire to not sell myself short and miss an opportunity that may never come again. I had not gotten beaten at all that year on the collegiate level, but I understood that I was going to go up against some big dogs, and I just had to really focus on believing myself and understand that, I deserve this because I put the work in. And it just worked out perfectly. It worked out perfectly. But I think in Oregon, when we had the NCAA championship, I think that's when I understood that, I was in amazing shape because there was so much wind on the backstretch and it was very cold and rainy. And so most of the people in that race ran 45 seconds, but I was the only one that ran 44 seconds. And that's when I understood that I was in really, really good shape.
All right, awesome. So we got a lot that we could talk about now in terms of we got to talk about the world, your highlight of your career, one of the biggest accomplishments. For the record, I mean, there might be other things that, and you could let us know. But in your books, was the Edmonton race your best race that you ran, or the most rewarding race? What your take on the World Championship final? Did you think you run the perfect race?
No, I didn't. I don't this was one of those races where I felt like if the first round, and obviously if the first round was the final, I think I would have ran extremely fast. My body just felt amazing. The track was really, really fast. But obviously you have to shut down and basically kind of conserve your energy. That round is like, I think I accidentally, and in my opinion, people say, how do you accidentally run 44.8? But it's like, that was not my intention. My intention was to run 45 seconds. I saw I ran 44.8. So I think I always wonder if I just ran through the line with that one particular race, I wonder what it could have become. But that made me understand that I was really, really fit. A lot of things came with really good ease, and I had a lot of confidence going into the actual final.
Okay, that's awesome. So that got to be definitely put you as the number one ranked athlete in 2001. And how did you?
I was nervous about Gregory Hawton. Michael Johnson wasn't there, but his training partner was.
Yeah.
he was ahead of me, so I was a little nervous.
I know, and we probably could show that race. I know that since Gregory was coming off a medal in the Olympics, and Michael Johnson have retired, and their eyes probably was on Gregory. I was in Edmonton also running at the time. I watched the race, it was a well-deserved win, because when you look back at the race, a guy from Germany took second. Yeah. And you look at the time, it wasn't like 43 seconds, but Michael Johnson was away, and just for the next generation of 400-meter runner that was coming up, and such at a young age, at age 22, I was in the prime of for great things, going forward. So I believe that. So the next question, obviously, with that, how did you get welcome from the Bahamian, from your country, just going back home? What was that feeling like, knowing that the girls have been doing the thing for many years, and they just have the thing from Sydney, and now on the male side, now you kind of step up the game. I know there probably was, it hasn't been anyone in a while. So how did that make you feel, and how did they welcome you back home?
So I'd experienced what they had experienced, because when they didn't just bring the girls home, they brought the entire team home. So it was just huge celebration. So I was like, really, I think I had prepared for it in my mind that it was probably going to be something special. Because this wasn't an individual medal. This wasn't a relay medal. It was an actual individual medal. So that hadn't happened in a while since Troy Kemp in the high jump. So, we really tried to celebrate our athletes and really make them feel, like their accomplishment is worthwhile. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt like they really made me understand that this was really historic for our country. And they wanted to, expose me to the high schools and the community as a whole, so that people will know that, this is one of us. This isn't just some random person. This is a person that lives in our community. And, I want you to meet him. And everyone else, I think that we got a relay medal, and Debbie Ferguson got a medal. So, it was good to share that attention with them.
Yeah, okay, definitely. Well, I just want to say, additionally, before we go over to Ian, that how did you celebrate that victory, knowing that I know you probably did not. I don't know if you celebrate after the race. I know that I don't know what I would do with myself winning the world championship title, but how did you celebrate that big success?
It was, for me, it took a little while to understand, because I watched it every year from high school until actually I was physically competing in it. It was like, I just felt like disbelief. I was just like, I didn't understand that I'd accomplished this. But once I got home and I saw everything, it was just good to kind of, just go spend some time with the people that really help and make that happen. Like the my Diana Thompson, the lady who drove us around when I was a kid in her little Nissan Sunny, and let her know that I appreciate her. But it's just spending time with my mom and letting her know that her sacrifice really caused this to happen. So the people and my grandmother, just spending time with them and celebrating with them. Neither one of them drank, so it was just like, just more so bringing them on a vacation and just like spending some personal time with them and really enjoying the success with them. Because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for them, there would be no me. They made a lot of sacrifice for that to happen.
Okay, awesome. And we know how difficult it is to stay on the top. Being the world champion, that got to be now you're going to be the target for the following year. How did you feel being the world champion? Did you feel like you got to now you can't let people down going forward? How did you deal with the limelight that comes with it?
It was different because I think when I went into the championships, it was like in my mind I wasn't a target. I felt like Gregory Horton was the target, and all of a sudden it's like I show up in a meet and people are looking at me as the target. So that was unusual. I think around that time I also started to get like these injuries. I got a stress fracture in 2002, but just the mental part of it, where it just became a really like up and down type thing. But it kind of builds you in a way that you don't think that it would. And when you come into real life, like it's your mental strength, your perspective on the things that you should be grateful for. I feel like I didn't enjoy being the target, but at the same time, it caused me to really try to take care of my body in a different way. I eventually ended up leaving Auburn, and I realized that it was a really strong program, but there were some things that I thought, okay, I could get elsewhere. It didn't necessarily work out. It didn't work out. I still got more injuries, and every now and then I would actually, just get in a really good groove and able to compete at a high level. But that made me evaluate that not everything is not greener on the other side. Sometimes you just have to appreciate the things that where you had success, how that worked for you and why that worked for you. And not every program is going to be in your favor.
So basically, if you were supposed to do it over again, would you say that you probably would have continued to stay at Auburn and train, or you would probably do the same thing again?
I don't know. I mean, there's very specific reasons for me making that decision. I thought another opportunity would kind of take me to another level. But also I wanted to, Auburn is a university town. I was a very young person and I wanted to see the world and just live life a little bit. And, I don't regret moving. I think I just realized that out in the community, even though the Olympics was in the Atlanta area, they didn't necessarily have the support that I was hoping for, like finding facilities to, have a consistent practice place and stuff like that. A lot of those things weren't readily available. But in terms of like the relationships that I've built in the area and so forth, I don't regret those because those things wouldn't happen if I had stayed in. Okay. But I do feel like, I still say today, Coach Bry and Coach Rosen are definitely two of the best quarter mile coaches out there, other next to like Clive Hart. That's arguable. Everyone will say something different, but I just felt like they worked really well for me. Okay.
And I was going to put you over to Ian, but since you brought up coach name, just tell us what's the best advice that you received from Coach Spry, just your college coach.
I definitely, it's just more so, he always used this term, it's just like, you don't need to overthink it. Once you've put the work in, and you have to be very honest with yourself. You have to know that you are giving 100% to whether it's a small effort or a large effort. You have to basically be 100% honest with yourself. And once you put the work in, he always used this term, once the hay is in the barn, you just got to keep it fresh. You know what I'm saying, for the most part. So you put the work in, you execute, you get your mind right, then you just got to do what you need to do to maintain that and just believe that you have the ability to compete at a really high level. And then it's possible. You know, you don't, people make it seem like you have to do very special, specific things. Preparation, you just have to prepare and prepare properly. One of the things that he did was really keep a drama-free environment. So you really were able to focus on training. You know, if something was going on external of the track, he really found great ways to, you know, minimize that so that you can focus on what you're supposed to be doing at the time.
All right, over to you, Ian.
Yes, Avard. One of my questions was gonna be, as a young athlete, coming through the system, did you believe that you had enough support, or there was much more that could have been done? You know, if you could speak a little bit more into that.
Definitely. Well, as a young person, the sport definitely came from my family. The Bahamian government definitely was really a huge part of. They had an athlete development program around the time that I was coming out, and that definitely was extremely helpful. But I can say that once I got into the university environment, and you know, because you know they can provide opportunities, but there's certain things that can be very limiting that they don't really have direct control over, like having a training room, qualified trainers that have accreditations, making sure you have a really great weight room workout. All of that was just in one place. And once you get that type of support and get those type of like the kind of people that have the knowledge that guide you, I think it really changes the person in a whole other way, especially somebody who is able to teach you. Like, it's just one thing to train somebody, but it's also somebody who's going to be able to teach you to do it properly and understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because it's so easy to just say, go do this, go do that, but you don't really understand why you're doing it. And I think coming up through my track and field career, I had coaches that basically taught me, which caused me to change behaviors that allowed me to be able to utilize my training to grow in an efficient way.
Okay. Regarding the whole athletics, I don't know how it's run, if it's a federation or what, but if you were given the opportunity to change anything within that to probably make the playing field level, is there anything that you would wish to change for the athletes that's coming up?
Oh, that's a tough question. You know, because everyone is different. Everyone comes from different environment. But I just feel like, you know, the Bahamas is definitely moving in a very positive direction in terms of now we have like a state of the art stadium. I never had to, like, the stadium that we have. It would have been amazing to be able to compete in that or whatever. And I think they're really building. They have way more than what I had going up. So I can't make any recommendations because they really are moving it in a positive direction now in terms of having the world relays in the Bahamas and having your young people exposed to the level of talents that, I mean, you get to see Usain Bolt in your country compete, you know, or Asafa Powell or, you know, Shanae Williams or Stephen Gardner. You know, I didn't have access to those. I basically had to go by the news. They were talking about people throughout the world and what they were doing. So I think we're definitely moving in a good direction in terms of exposing our athletes to, you know, levels that, you know, makes them view this thing differently, understanding that you can do this if you just put yourself in the right situation in the right environment. I think kids have access to a lot more, like the social media and all that stuff. Sometimes I would recommend pulling back from some of that stuff because sometimes I feel like they could be more of a distraction. Everyone's trying to be a superstar. So that'd probably be the recommendation to do. But, you know, obviously that's helpful in other regards. So.
All right. As professional athletes, we know that you guys have to put in a lot of work. And I know sometimes even with training, it may, you know, money coming from your own pocket too. And it all depends on the level of professionalism that you want to get in terms of your team. But do you believe that professional athletes are paid enough based on the work that they have to put in comparison to the other sports?
I'm so glad you asked that question because I was looking at the prize money in 2001 and then looking at the prize money at the 2019 championships. And if I was looking at the right document, it's the same. I think that needs to change. Just like, when you work on a regular job, they increase salary based on cost of living, especially if you're in a really densely populated area. Like, for example, I'm in Atlanta. So it just blew my mind that the pot was still as low as it was. I was hoping that maybe that had gotten to a point. I mean, we were talking about 20 years ago where it would be a little bit more significant. I mean, those things can really make a difference in athletes' life, especially if you win it. You win a Super Bowl or any NBA championship. I mean, of course, those are fan-based sports, but you're multi-millionaire. You can really lead a different life. Track and field, even though some of the contracts are really more significant than it was when I first started, I just feel like there could be more. There could be a lot more that, in terms of sponsorship, and I know those are improving, but the actual championship, I feel like that could definitely improve in a very significant way. I mean, like somebody may only win a championship once. They may never have that opportunity again. So that was a shock to me because I just wanted to see, just out of curiosity in 2019, what it was, because I know what it was when I did it. And I was shocked that it was still the same.
Yeah, that leads me into another question. So, and that is, since it's not the money, it seems like in terms of athletics, what would you say would have motivate you to do your best, in terms of your competition? What motivates you?
What motivates me? I think for me, I understood that doing well really created opportunities, to be visible, to have like support, sponsorship, or even support from your country or stuff like that. That was really the driving force to get a free education. A lot of people who went through undergrad who have like really high college debt. I worked in admissions, so I know that people incur very significant debt. For me, I understood that this was really a chance to change my life. So that was the main motivation for me, but also the things that I was going to be exposed to, like being in Chile, being in Greece, these things and I didn't have to pay much to do these things. Those were the things that kept me motivated and intrigued to be able to live a lifestyle that I've dreamed about, but not necessarily have to, put a lot of my own personal resources into it.
Great. All right. So, with all your accomplishments, you definitely speak highly, of your country, and you're someone I see that is well motivated. Encouraged. You don't seem like it take much to do that because you're motivated from within.
Yes.
But after competing and bringing Bahamas so much medals, would you tell us how they have received you there? I know you're an icon in your in your world, but could you just tell us how the Bahamian public have received you?
Bahamians really aren't people. They know their stars and stuff like that, but they don't really. They don't get like most Caribbean people. They're like, oh, okay, well that's Michael Jackson or whatever, and they love him, whatever. But I feel so like I do feel accomplished when I go home, when people recognize me, and when people say to me, I just want to thank you for doing this because it did whatever it did for my life, or it did for something for my child, or something like that. That is inspiration for me, simply because I understand that sometimes just like like when you watching an election or you're watching a game, so many people, their emotional state, their desire, their willingness, a lot of them are attached to these things being successful. So to hear that anything that I've done in my life that was good caused anyone to, get something positive is definitely, a big deal for me. And Bahamians constantly have said that to me. They've never let me forget, what I did, whether I did it 20 years ago, last year, recently. I think they know more of that stuff than I do. They're very worried. And the Caribbean, not we've had a lot of success, but we've had like this whole bunch. I think we really hold on to the things that we've accomplished because we know what we had to face in order to accomplish those things. I mean, only now that I think athletes stay home and train and are now world champions. Like you've seen Shelly Ann Fraser and, Shanae, I think she trained home a little bit as well. Those are big deals, So I love my country. I love the people there. They just have a vibe about them that's just like unmatched, the Caribbean people and also people in the Bahamas. And, I just love it.
All right. Final question for this segment is, now Bahamas basically have give to you, as I see a lot. What is it that you're giving back now, or is it there's something that you're working on? Because I know Ian is ready to jump on board, helping, and if you have a project that you're gonna be working on in ways that we could help you. You could say if you have something going on currently, or is there something that you're working on in terms of giving back, probably just to the athletes or just to the country on a whole.
So, I mean, I did coach a little bit. I coached one of the Bahamian athletes. He was the 2013 Carifta champion at 200 meters. That was extremely rewarding, and because the Carifta was actually held in the Bahamas. And, also I was able to recruit for my university in the Bahamas when I was at the previous school. I don't do much recruiting now, but my thing is more so to really, and like whenever I get the opportunity, I don't have any foundations or anything, but like any opportunity I get to tell kids about my personal experience and how they can make different choices in order to enhance their life and their own personal experiences. I always try to share that because I understand that, if you can, like they say, a person who goes into the wilderness and comes back and says nothing has failed his people. So it is very important that, those experiences that I've had from going into the wilderness, I come back and I share it with athletes. I do it more interpersonally, nothing to, kind of pretty brag about, but I've seen people's lives change based on advice that I've given them. So that's how I focus on it.
All right. Thank you for the accomplishment. Thank you for the service to your countrymen. And I'll just pass you right back over to Ian.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Got one, since you were talking about your country, I know that one thing that I have read about, you are pretty much an icon. You was awarded or put in place this on the stamp, on the national stamp. I'm pretty sure you're getting some of the preceded. No, I'm joking. But how did that make you feel with seeing that you are on the mail a stamp when you see a picture on there? That got to be put you in some special place. Some other people in the history of Bahamas, because you basically is a historian. You're part of the history of Bahamas right now.
At the time when it happened, I was 22, and it was like, whoa, I want to stamp. It was kind of like very surreal. But now that I'm older and I look at it, it kind of is like this reflection of, people, they don't just put anyone on a stamp. You must have done something very significant. So it's a part of my legacy, for my, I don't have any kids yet, but it's like I have nieces and nephews or whatever. And it's always something that can be referred back to understand that someone in our family was able to do something significant, that the government made a decision to put them on a stamp. It was such an ego boost. That's the big, that was on. It was such an ego. I just was really proud about it.
A lot of countries done things, like statues. I know they're doing that in Jamaica right now. There has a National Heroes Park in Jamaica. They have, give people Order of Distinction behind the name and turn people into diplomat and things like that. Personally, just for what you have accomplished, did did in terms of being a diplomat, or you know, were you recognizing that in any way like that?
No, I never got the diplomat status, but I'm still open to it. The good thing about our country is like, I think we had so much success after 2000. It was just like we had like you had the 92 Olympics, and then you had the 96 Olympics, and then then after that it just seems like a whole bunch of athletes just came up that were doing pretty well. Um, I think we pretty much keep you humble and just you got any diplomatic status. But I mean, the treatment that you get once you walk through an airport is so amazing. So I think they do whatever they can to make us understand that we are definitely special.
All right. So I'm gonna come back to a little bit about you. This is just some question that from me. I know I'm asking it, but I want to talk about workouts, and I wanted to in your career. What was one of your favorite workout that that makes you feel like you're ready to go and you feel good about yourself, that you're in great shape?
So we did. Like this workout was either you loved it or you hated it. But we did like there's this. I did like this repeat 400, like where you would do 3 with like a minute rest, and
Okay.
basically it's almost like you run 800-meter pace. But if you can get, and we kind of do it times 2. If you can get like 52, and then somehow drop up to like 53, 54, that means you are ready to run really fast, because of obviously your recovery between that a short time is very significant, and that means you are really wired to really deal with lactate buildup and so forth really well. But that was a workout that was extremely challenging. And I would have to do that times 2. But I understood when I was able to perform it at that level that I was definitely ready to go to rock and roll.
All right. So with all the countries, all the frequent flyer miles, all the places you go, um, where's one place that you just always like to go? Not other than the Bahamas and the US, just over into Europe, or place that you like to run.
My favorite place was Switzerland, Lausanne. That was such a huge meet. It was like I felt like a real celebrity at that meet. Like the European population was so knowledgeable. The accommodations was amazing. The food was great, and of course the track was fast. So you ran well there. So you just had this complete experience there. To run well, treated well, feel well, and then the scenes were amazing. But I mean, I can't choose a few because I have quite a few, but Switzerland stands out in my mind because it was such a high level meet. I never got to go to Zurich. I think that's the spot that I would have wanted to visit. But the Lausanne meet was definitely my favorite one of all. But I always tell people, if Australia wasn't so far, I would probably go there on my own without competition. But that's the 2 days of traveling.
All right. And I would like to give you the segment. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of your teammates in college? I know we talked about the college, but I noticed I didn't get, we talk about just give a shout out or call a couple of your teammates that you were running alongside while you was in college.
So I used my training partners because a lot of them were from Caribbean, Jamaica. I felt like a Jamaican at one point. You had like Davian Clark, Michael McDonald, Sanjay Eyre, and just a couple of Tim Green, Julius Edwards. These were people that were extremely talented, and they made me work for it every time I came out there to practice. Obviously Sanjay was a part of that 2000 Olympic team, as well as Davian. And I think Davian was also the 96, I think was he a 96 4x4 as well. And then of course Michael McDonald, who in 2001, we felt like it was either going to be him as the champion or me, because he was in really, really great shape. He was definitely a tough competitor. At one point, my coach had to separate us because he was just like, you know what? I don't want y'all to be competing against each other. I really want y'all to focus on the workout. But that year, I think, just having him around just took my training to a whole other level, So once again, you have that Caribbean family who we were pushing each other. We understood that this was very big for our region. And, if we took advantage of this opportunity and push each other to the next level, that we could bring attention and success for that region as well.
All right. Awesome, man. So you want to talk a little bit about, so when did you officially retire and how difficult was that for you?
I retired in 2013. After 2012 was definitely going to be my last Olympics. I was 34 and I knew that, that was probably the last thing. There was the injuries were too frequent. And also, I think at that point, I didn't have a sponsor at the time. And I also wanted to start another part of my life. I think a lot of athletes don't understand that after this is another way of living. There's like, whether you choose to be in the corporate world or you just choose to be a business owner of your own, there's a whole other life that you have to prepare for. So I definitely wanted to begin the process of moving into, a more professional world. So 2013, I made the decision to hang my spikes up and start to focus on developing that.
Okay. And I know that we have talked about you doing a little bit of coaching. So just tell us what did you learn from coaching about yourself? I mean, just you being a coach, what did you learn, anything, or what was your thoughts of being a coach? What's your input in that?
Patience. I have a big ego, because I'm humble in the sport, but it's like when you understand what it takes to do some of the things that you've done, and you see somebody who is talented, not necessarily embracing that thought process, it becomes very, very frustrating. But at the same time, you understand that coaching is also teacher, and teacher is to create a mindset to change the behavior of somebody and allow it to become something that's going to be beneficial to them. That takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it was really, really enjoyable. And when I saw one of my athletes become successful, it was more thrilling than winning, because now you lose control of what happens. When you're an athlete, you can control it a little bit. But then when you have to kind of pass it on to someone else, you realize that it's really up to them. And you hope that everything that you've taught them, they actually translate that into a great performance. So it was thrilling. But at the same time, I knew that it was something that I wasn't extremely passionate about. And I definitely wanted to make sure that people who wanted to pursue that, they had access to a person who is equally as passionate about that. And was willing to be there on every level to support them in that regard.
Okay. Well, I hope that you consider do some form of mentorship, or because I really believe that you're very knowledgeable and very talented, and very inspirational in your success. And I know that just sharing your story that could help some kid back to home or on a professional level. Mentoring is also it's on a little different level than the coaching, because it's just more like just kind of give them advice of things that can help them to achieve what they're trying to achieve. Yeah. So I'm gonna touch a little bit about your mom. I'm gonna ask you pretty much in terms of advice. What's one of the best advice? Or I know that well, let's take it like this. What's the best advice you have received, from your mom?
My mom was very extremely spiritual, and her focus was always to understand where opportunities, where success, where talent, where all these things came from. And it was always to remain grounded and understand that just as quickly as something can be given to you, as quickly as it can be taken away from you. And that's something that I'll carry through my life, to really appreciate the things and the moments that I had. And not, a lot of times we want, like we talked about earlier, we would hope that it could be different or it could be better. But and then thinking track and field, we always feel like, oh, if this had happened, and we don't really get a chance to focus on the success that we do have. Even if you come off the track and you just win the world championship, which I saw a lot when I was watching the 2019, there was like, what are you going to do next year? You don't really get a chance to enjoy and savor the moment that you're actually in. And that's one of the things that she always taught me, to stop for a minute and savor the hard work that you've already put in to get you to the point where you were able to be successful now. Because a lot of times we can get so focused on what's next that we don't really get a chance to appreciate where we are in the moment. So, and that also goes like, with spending time with somebody, and it's just like, I'll do it next time or something like that. Just enjoy the moment, live in the present, because that really is the only portion of our life that we really have control over, the moment that we're presently in.
Okay. So I'm just gonna ask you another question, one more question in regarding to your mom. I know that this year has been a tough year for you. That your mom is no longer with us, and so how are you doing dealing with loss of her?
It's one of those things, you physically go there, you go to the funeral, you see the actual person, but this person who is literally there for all the years that you've known life and been your support for all those years, it's just the thought of not being able to ever speak to them again. It's still the hardest thing that I will ever deal with in for forever, keep a straight face. Hold on.
Well,
Yeah. What I do focus on is, like, everything that she's taught me, all the experiences that we've had. I found myself laughing at the jokes that she left. I have a lot of voice notes from her, and I refer to those a lot. And I focus on those things because my mom, the opportunities that were not afforded to her, she still made herself mom of the year in my book for many, many years. She never, I never knew I was broke. I never knew I didn't have money. I never wanted for things that most people had. She just made sure whatever I needed to be successful, from money to go on trips, support. She worked in the evening, so she never could like pick me up and take me from practice, but she just made sure that I never had to need anything. And I will always be grateful for that, because those things were life-changing.
Well, I'm thank you for sharing that with us. As I said, my sincere condolences to you, and I just want to encourage you to to stay strong, and continue to
that is just like, we are still currently in the middle of a pandemic. Just to leave a message to people who may be listening, it's just like, it sometimes isn't really just about you. You may be fine because of a really large population of people that experience this disease recover from it fully, but you have that person who has underlying conditions. They are the ones that are going to suffer the most and possibly lose their life. So as a community, I feel like we need to not focus on the fact that something may be minimally affecting us, but also think about how it may be affecting the community as a whole, the people who may not be able to deal with some of the stresses that your body may be able to deal with. Because that was really one of the issues that we had. My mom was a diabetic, and she had her challenges with that. And other people in my household, they came into contact with that, but she was the one that didn't have a very favorable outcome. So, and that really is the concept that the community, the health professionals are trying to push out. Just like, no, you probably will be fine, but is your grandmother, is your aunt, is your older relative that is probably going to have the deadly effects of it. And I think that's what people need to focus on. I understand we want to have fun and live life and get back to normal, but in order to get back to that sense of normalcy, we have to do it collectively.
Yeah. And I'm gonna let Ian, if Ian have anything to say about what you have experienced. I know that any thoughts, Ian?
Well, I just want to say this is basically the toughest period in my life personally, so I may be able to associate with Avard leading up to the loss of a parent, because I would have been there back in America now, just chilling with my kids and my wife if everything was well. It's a pandemic year, but then my mom been sick for the past 3 months. It's just doctor to doctor, and when you're not there, you're not the doctor, you're not the nurse for her or anything, and you just see what is happening. You see, like, you're actually looking and see, man, this is reality. You know that someday your parent may pass away, and leave you, because say one thing that is guaranteed is that death. We should die at some point. But when you see it facing you, like, my mom is, you realize that, well, it is here, because we've been busy all these years doing our own thing. Sometimes then I start looking back, man, I could have spent a little bit more time with her. Hey man, the time I was doing this, I could spend with her. And it's like you start going back and you have those memories of her, as Avard would say, those little voice messages. You remember those at the time. Hey, Ian, where are you now? It's time for you to come home. They're always looking out for you all their years. And it's now this point where you gotta be the real man, because all the years you're just a child for mommy. You never grow up. I tell you, up to this day, and that's the very reason why I'm over here in Jamaica. If you see, if I was back in America, I'd have a nice little background. I just grab a sheet, I throw it up, because I'm really here, and I'm telling you, Avard, I've been crying for 3 months basically. People still see you, and they think that all is well. But they don't see you when the door is closed. They don't see you when you get under the sheet. They don't see you when you're not sleeping. They don't see you when you're not eating. But they may hear a voice and you sound strong, you look good and everything. But I just want to say to those people that this is real. And if you have your mother out there, your father, your auntie, your uncle, this is the time to just really show love. Because then, leading up to illness, I work as a nurse, and I've taken care of many people, family member, and this is one thing, I always treat them like it's my mother. But when reality home, I'm telling you, it is not easy to deal with, as much as you may be encouraged, as much as you feel like you got your life together. I can tell you, man, this thing will shake you up totally. And my life for the last couple of months, I would say leading up, I would say I was having the best time of my life. I had two kids, one 3-year-old, one 1-year-old, and a wife, and things just looked so fun. My parents, I know they were waiting on their grandkids from us, and to see it happen, and then now to see my mother battling with health issue, it is just a tough place to be, man. It is not easy. So I can associate with the part leading up to this. And it is a challenge, and no matter how strong you are as a man, because as men we should be strong. So no matter how strong you are, you're gonna break down, man. You're gonna that point is gonna come where you're gonna have tears running. You don't even know how to console those tears. And I'm just telling you, that's what's happening. Sleepless night. I'm here and I can't shut down. It's like I'm in America, I can't shut down. I'm just thinking, what's next? I'm calling mom, you okay? It's like you want to hear her voice. But then when you hear her voice, she's not well. That's not mommy. Something is going on. And and I tell you, I had to come home, despite the pandemic and everything. I had to leave my wife, my kids, and that's a tough thing to do also. just to be here for her, just being an advocate on the ground. And I'm just telling you, tomorrow I'm going into Kingston with her again, and it's just like up, and we've been to the hospital. And as I say, healthcare, I'm in it, but it's not what I want it to be. I think there's still a lot of gaps, a lot of loophole. I think it's all about the money. One doctor pass you to another referral here, there, and nobody seems to be really targeting the real issue. Seem that, guess what? It's just a client. I gotta make some money here or there, and you find one or two doctors that will really look at it like, oh, I look at my patient. Guess what? Could be somebody's parent. But I'm here, Ian. I'm telling you, I see my mother would do like X-ray last week, CAT scan last week. They refer her to another doctor. They want her to do the same thing that they have the images for already. I'm like, if you don't even support the radiologist report, why not have your doctors look at it and give a report instead of doing it all over again? So you see, who's down to is like they're playing a game with your loved one. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm like, I gotta be the advocate on the ground. I gotta take this on like fully. And it's hard when you can't be there, because there's gonna be a point when I can't be here. I have to leave back to America. And I'm just telling people, man, if you're out there and your parents, you may take this thing for granted, that guess what, you're gonna have them all year round. Guess what, man? There come a point when you're gonna be worried. You're gonna be at that spot. Is like, man, did I spend enough time with her? Could I have done more? And so I'm just saying, this time, just take this time to just embrace them. Give God thanks for what He had given to you, because they're all gift to us. Because without them, without my mother, there wouldn't have been a me. And I cannot repay her for what she has done for me. And I'm just telling you, man, I'm hurting. I'm trying to heal, but nobody out there will know what's going on inside here. We try to put on a show. I tell you that much, but it is heart-rending, man. So, Avard, if you want to say something here, but I'm just telling you, to the people out there, man, it is real. So embrace those loved ones.
And I think one of the most challenging things, because I really like to shed light on this, is just a whole other reason why you do want to take this into consideration, is because, the isolation that comes along with when a person has to go into the hospital for that particular situation. One of the things that you're fortunate is that you can actually go into treatments with your mom and so forth. But one of the issues a lot of families are facing is they can't physically be with their loved ones. You have a really busy hospital with nurses who have to do various things. And then, obviously they can't give your loved one the attention that they really, really deserve based on the condition that they're dealing with. And a lot of people are facing that where their loved ones are dying alone, which is probably the most challenging, most difficult, most heart-wrenching thing that I had to deal with, that not knowing that I couldn't physically be in there. There are certain things, well, I don't mind doing this, I don't mind doing that, but you just can't because of the way things are set up. And it's a difficult way to lose your loved one, but people really need to take that into consideration when they're trying to go about their day-to-day life and being inconsiderate of who they could possibly affect, because that's a huge challenge for the family that has to deal with not being able to physically be there with their loved ones as they go through this very challenging illness. And even, during the period where they have to die, to be able to have to die with strangers on the side of their bed. So I always try to tell people, like, really think about that, and think about if you would want your loved one to experience that. I just saw the numbers are so high. I feel like people are insensitive to exactly how this is affecting people, but it is a very real thing. And just put your own loved one in that space, in that mindset, as you continue to go about your life and wonder, how would I want my treated if they were in a scenario like that? And understand that you making a decision to disregard what's going on could possibly put your loved one in that scenario where they're alone and by themselves and can't have you to support them as they're going through this life-changing and probably life-ending experience. And that's what I really want to preach to people, because that was extremely different to me. And I never fathom that it would be the way that I would end my mom's life, not being physically there to support her when she probably needed the most support in her life.
All right, Moncur, if you look here, this is a whole sheet. You're not gonna see, but I just read what and I just in my down moment, I just had written a few stuff down here. And I think this is something that you may want to think about. Join force, we do something, and I'll just read it out. I say, if you don't mind, I would love to turn my attention to my latest project, which was brought about by this pandemic. As a nurse, I have gotten a chance to see firsthand how badly our lives have been affected by this deadly disease called COVID-19. I've seen patient family members passing away in hospital, long-term care facilities, and senior living without a single soul by their bedside. This makes me stop and think, what if I could be the voice for these people, the advocate that could bridge the gap between death and living? I could create a team that would take the time out to counsel both the patient and the family in time when social distance is the new norm. I saw myself communicating from the middle between the patient and their family. I also saw myself connecting them with the healthcare team that actually caring for the patient. As visitation had been long the thing of the past because of this deadly disease, I saw myself connecting them virtually, and not just connecting them, but also presenting myself as a mentor and a friend. So this gave birth to Together We Rise, Healing Our Nation, a virtual healing platform where people don't have to die from their hospital bed without seeing their loved ones. And families on the outside would not have to worry what's happening to their loved ones on the inside because they are not allowed to visit. I wanted to close this gap between dying alone and living a fulfilling life to the very end. And really and truly, what that means is that, we're thinking of basically creating like a virtual healing platform where we could, connect family and friends, whether through mentoring, sports, poetry, music, I really was looking into it because, people, as you say, you're on the outside, you can't go in and visit the patient. You really don't know what's happening. You can't speak to the doctors or so forth. So I was thinking if I could build a bridge, because I'm a healthcare worker, I could talk to them. We could connect just like this. We could have that family one, there virtually on a platform where family could come together, at least give support.
Yeah.
I've not seen it being done, but I think it's needed because it's not healthy to be there in a little bed where no one by your bedside, you're getting comfort from people you don't know. So as much as we are nurses, we can do little and so much. It's like, it's not the same as having a loved one there that say, hey, mommy, it's okay, and rub your head, give you a hug, embrace you. And this is really the part of it that is really hurting in this time, because you don't have to go in for COVID, but because of the COVID protocol, you've been barred from entering the hospital. So it's really a difficult time for everyone. And I really think that even we're on here, we could think about how we could build a bridge to kind of, have something that at least have them being comfortable if they're even gonna die, man. Because it's a sad case. And just working in the healthcare, I get to see this like firsthand. So
I imagine, like, what you guys have to deal with, I'm sure is extremely challenging at this point, very overwhelming. So definitely hats off to you and all the other healthcare workers, because the work, I'm sure, is frustrating when you see people not doing what they're supposed to do. And of course, it's going to cause this to not ever come to a low period. But the good thing is that we do have a vaccine. I don't know how the vaccine is going to work in the grand scheme of things. A lot of people are kind of iffy, but there's actually a light to the end of the tunnel, and hopefully you guys will get some relief soon in terms of these numbers coming down and so forth.
Man, we both believe in God, and we know this too shall pass, but it's how long it's gonna last. It's a tough one, man.
And I'm like, not to get into the political aspect of it, but it was definitely leadership. This just blew my mind that people with disregard the severity of something so serious, especially when you have a number that is racking up so much. It was unfortunate, but hopefully, like, with the change of leadership, people come into place with a more strategic plan, and a more realistic outlook, that it would really put this in the level, give it the level of attention that it deserves, and we would be able to curtail this and possibly save some people's lives.
So, man, my condolences to you and the entire family.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I got through that. It was a little difficult, especially when you were talking with your mom.
Yeah, I like it. It's I said, look, I'm just gonna, if it's my respect to you, and if I'm glad you was able to talk about it. I hope that actually you know get something positive out of it. So, and you did really well. And I said, I am very, very proud of you. So let's just wrap it up. Just gonna end on a different note here, in regarding to the closing, and the last. I got two more questions. So, what advice would you have for young athletes now, knowing that the experience, and for someone that might be listening, that gonna take the same step that you do, they're gonna transition to the United States and come here to further their career and get an education. What message would you? There's one thing that you'd want to share with them that you think that is very important.
Fortunately for a lot of athletes, there's so much information out there. Like, you don't have to wait for someone's guidebook or some schools or whatever. You really can do the research on your own. I would definitely tell them to do the research, find people around you that believe in what you're trying to accomplish, that's positive, and really try to educate yourself as an athlete in terms of what it really takes to be successful. That's nutrition, post recovery, mental and psychological development. Even though it sounds like very advanced, sometimes it only take you, listening to positive messages, or creating positive affirmations for yourself or whatever. But there's so much information out there. Really take advantage of that information, but beyond that, have the desire to just want to go there and be the best version of yourself. That is key. It's just like, a lot of people settle for mediocrity, but it really is you that have the ability to take yourself out of poverty, out of extreme situations. And if you really take advantage of all of the new resources that are available, that wasn't available in the 90s and part of the 2000, take advantage of those things, I really think that you could be extremely, extremely successful, and meet some of the personal objectives that you have. So everyone has a phone. I always tell people, you have a phone. There's YouTube on every phone. I say YouTube is your friend. Utilize those resources and make yourself a better person, a stronger athlete, from every different aspect. Nutrition, like I said, psychological, and so forth.
All right. So, guys, you hear it from Avard Moncur, two-time NCAA champion, world champion, four-time Bahamian national champion. I've won, competing in several world championships, and they in pretty much he have competed in, I would say, that every single championship, Pan American, CAC, Goodwill Games, and the list goes on. So you pretty much represent your country very well in every areas. So my closing question, and this is just my favorite. About man, for how would you want to, for all that you have accomplished, and for all your spirituality and all that you have believed about yourself, and all the lessons that you have learned from your mother and your grandmother, and your coaches, how would you want to be remembered in your version of the type of athlete you are and the type of person that you have become? you know uh, you know in the short, I know. Just give us the best version you can of you picturing yourself looking at. You know yourself more than anybody else. But what would you say?
Well, that's a heavy question. It's like, I would definitely want to be remembered as somebody who saw that it didn't matter where you came from or the circumstances that were placed before you or whatever your cards were dealt. It really is how you play those cards. It's really how your perspective on those things, because that's what worked for me. I saw that I wasn't rich. I didn't have opportunities that were like other people that were around me. But my mom told me that if you have life and you have breath, then anything that you put your mind to, it has to be there for a reason. Then you must be able to achieve that. So I would like to be considered somebody who didn't accept the status quo, who didn't accept people's perspective of what I should be, and basically created a path for myself and saw that come into fruition in my life by just making great decisions, so that those things would be realized. But someone who is always seeking to, be the best version of myself at all times. That's something that everyone is constantly challenged with. There's so many different distractions that are available, but I always seek to be the best version of myself, because I know I'm not just a representation of myself, but also the legacy that I will leave behind for my children, my nieces, my nephews, and anyone that may be inspired by my presence on this earth.
All right, well said. So again, just going to close my segment here. If if Ian could close it out. So again, sir, Avard, I've competed, pretty much probably about 7 or 8 years with traveling around on the circuit. We was at the 2000 Olympics, Edmonton, the Commonwealth Games. Then I wasn't able to keep up with you, so I fall off. I was not the 2004 Olympics, and then I picked it up back in '05, and then I went back to Commonwealth Games. So I've seen your career and what you have accomplished, and I said you helped definitely pave the way for athletes like Stephen Gardner right now, who is been compared to you in terms of you guys are tall, and you built it, so with all of that, I just want to say that it was an honor and a pleasure just to know you as a person that humbled, very respectful, and always be a gentleman, in on and off the track. I never hear anything negative about you from nowhere. So that speaks of you. So I just want to say that, man, you've been a good ambassador for yourself and for your country, and you have represented yourself very well. And I'm sure you continue to represent yourself and make your family proud and make your mom proud, and and you have made history for all that you have done, and I know that yeah, I know a world championship is coming up in Oregon, so maybe you get a chance to sit back as a fan and watch some track one of these days.
I think it's very interesting. I could enjoy it a little longer. Can I use one last word? When I see someone like a Stephen Gardner, who I think is like haven't even tapped into his real ability yet, because he's didn't go through the university system, and I don't know that if my performance inspired him or anything, but what I do know and understand is that the young males in our country, to see them compete at this high level and no longer stagnant in a place where, oh, well, Avard was the greatest ever. I never wanted to be the greatest ever, because I understood how much talent exists in our country, in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, and it'll always be my wish that experiences like a Stephen Gardner, and hopefully one of these years we'll see another Usain Bolt, those things continue to rise so that the region will be able to shine in a way that we could never have imagined many, many years ago.
All right, well said with that. And so, Ian, I'm going to let you close the program out. Just want to say a final word.
Well, first I just want to give a shout out to this gentleman here, Gary Barnes. Basically, one of the Stetsonian. Basically, we were in the same year batch at Stets, and it seems like every time Gary would end this program for us before we can get to ending it. Gary been ending it because he basically find the right word to say, and tonight he have hit it the nail on the head again. Because I just read his statement here. You see, I can see that Avard is a very humble and has a strong faith in God. He will do well in any path that he chooses. Avard, with that said, man, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for being on the program, Ian and Ian. Thank you for taking the time out from your busy schedule or just your time alone, your family time, to just be here with us to share your story, your journey, and also the fact that you have shared with us your grief. Your grief, because I'm telling you, I can probably associate with this much of it, but for you to come on here and share so much, I know our audience will walk away and they will be inspired and they will take something from this. And I'm just saying, man, you're a strong man. Be encouraged. Continue to walk God's path. And I just tell you, your latter shall be greater. And the Lord is gonna use you mightily. You said you don't have a foundation or anything yet, but guess what? It's not gonna be your will. It's gonna be His will, and He's just gonna throw you right in your passion too. So just look out for it, because He's not gonna put you through all of this and not have a plan for you, man. I say sometimes when we're in our darkest moment, that's when you see that hand reach out and hold us and embrace us when we need it. And I just know this is now gonna be your season, man. Just relax and just know that God got you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Avard, I just want to say that I honestly see, I hear your story, and I'm really seeing a book. I mean, your story really, from it really should be in the schools in Bahamas. So you should seriously consider it about, put your story in a book. For what you have done, and so other kids back home could read it and see that, look, if he do it, I could do it too.
Yeah, that's a thought. I never, I was thinking, in my mind, it's like so boring, but you just never think how that could inspire somebody. But thank you guys for creating this platform for someone like me to come on and be able to share my personal experience. Hopefully, somebody will be inspired by that, and this is the kind of thing that changes the world when people create platforms like this and create the experience, use the experiences of other people to share with other people so they are inspired.
All right. So thank you very much. And I said it was a pleasure. And we hope that you enjoy some of the time, the rest of the day. I know you're probably going in the office tomorrow. So so have a great rest of the evening and walk good, stay safe, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Have a good one, man.